Now I don't know about heaven, no, but I can tell you about hell. Right now, I never lived in a mansion, not at all, but I spent time in a cell. Been locked up, I couldn't speak about the good life, cause all I ever known was bad. You already know, I guess I'm gonna die a gangster. Fuck, that's all I ever really had. That's all I ever really had. That's all I ever really had. But I'm stuck on the corner, that's all I ever really had. If I slip, I'm a goner, that's all I ever really had. I think it's making me strong, that's all I ever really had. There ain't no taking my honor, that's all I ever really had. I know they ready to judge me, that's all I ever really had. Cause I'm heavily thugged, that's all I ever really had. I had to hustle to make, that's all I ever really had. So the struggle won't break, that's all I ever really had. My pen's been dipped in the blood that I shed in the street. You'll see how I bleed out and end up dead on my feet. Hate dreams where I'm looking at myself in a box. Lot of fire at the bottom and hope it's felt at the top. Ain't no waiting to ask, I'm just a slave of my past. Campaign fast lane, I'm just waiting to crash.
Is that loud?
He said, "Is it loud?" Welcome back, man. I got the IUG going live right now. I've Ben Amador. I got Maria Martinez in the building, so we can have a great conversation. I appreciate y'all stopping by. Ben, Maria, how y'all doing tonight?
I'm good. How you doing?
Ben, what's up with you, man?
Feeling good.
How's it
Feeling
going
good.
up there,
Thanks for
man?
having me.
Okay. So first
Doing
things
good.
first,
Doing good.
I got Maria, who is the CEO, owner, and operator of Divine Models. I got Ben, who is one of the premier organizers for the Brown community in Northern California, with an organization doing things called Time Done. Is that the name of the organization, Ben?
Yes, time done.
Time Done. Okay, that's what's up. That's what's up. Now, Ben, why don't you tell? That's a really important. I've seen people like C. Lee. I've seen rappers on it. Why is this so important? What is this Time Done about?
Time done is basically a policy change organization that organizes not just an organization but a movement that organizes people with conviction records and gets them together, and we bring them to the state capitol, literally to the doorsteps of power, and so that their voices could be heard in advocating for state policies and state budgets that directly impact their own lives, their families, their communities, based upon the laws that are used to govern them. And really, it all boils down to what, as a society, are we going to allow, right? Do we want a police carceral state that perpetuates a system of mass incarceration, or do we want to take for example, $14 billion annual budget and put that into some community investment, build up some schools, get some career development programs going, instead of just building more prisons and giving more correction officers more bonuses.
So what you're saying is like your mentality is not really just lock everybody up, throw away the key, hide them for society. You basically are, is this the post sentencing, or is this, instead of sentencing? What is this, I guess, what is the process of that?
For the purpose of time done and the issues that we're focused on right now, we focus a lot on expungement policy. So that's post conviction issues, right? And then the basis of that, right, is essentially that when an individual serves their time and their time is done, hence the name time done, when their time is done, that they should be allowed to move on with their lives without their record being constantly pulled up and used against them to deny them positive opportunities. 'Cause that's the only time background checks are ever really utilized, when someone's trying to get a job, whenever someone's trying to get housing, or whenever someone's trying to get some form of licensing. Any type of positive opportunity that somebody's seeking, there's a multi-billion-dollar background check industry that is set up to profit off of pulling up people's worst mistakes in the history of their lives and then using it to haunt them and deny them opportunities that impact not only them but their families. And the overall consensus when it comes to that is that when you have individuals that have made their mistake, they've served their time, their sentence is complete, right? And they're ready and willing to move on with their lives on a positive foot. The last thing we should do is put obstacles in their path and make it harder for them. And those type of obstacles typically come with the hurdles that arise with the conviction record.
And do you feel like personally, whenever someone is get out of jail, get out of prison, do these obstacles often do they lead to, re what would be the term? Recidivism, is that what it's called? Where they commit a crime again? Does this discourage? Do all these hurdles, does it prevent crime? How do you what do you Where do you think happens there?
It's definitely a driver of recidivism because when I volunteered for a community based organization out here in Stockton, I was doing I was doing case management with individuals that are reentering society from jail and prison, and they're ultimately just trying to get any job that's out there so that they can get some clothes, pay a light bill or two, just to get back on their feet, right? Just to get the ball rolling of reentering back in society and pulling their lives together, and how and then it was so like hard just to hear people say like I'm trying. Like who hires felons? Because everyone is telling me that it only the minimum wage warehouse jobs hire, and even then they'll go apply for a job. A couple weeks later, background check will come back, and they'll get walked off the premises.
Ain't that the truth? I mean, I think Maria, you was talking to me earlier about this. You was like, man, all these hurdles, it makes people go right back to the hustle that they was hustling. You know what I mean? When they really get out and they was trying to do something. Why don't you tell us how you feel about that?
Well, I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's super discouraging. If you go and you do your time and you try to put that beside you and you're trying to move back into society and be on a positive note, right, and walk away from whatever led you to be incarcerated in the first place, it affects everybody. I mean, it even affects the household. A lot of these guys, have children, they have people to provide for, right? And a lot of the reason why they're there is a lot of times people are hustling. They're making money because they're trying to make ends meet. In the Bay Area, to live is super expensive. I think people don't factor in how expensive it is to live here. It's like you need multiple people in the household in order to keep your head above water, right? I mean, like, let's just be honest. Like, look at the rent, right? So just the cost of living is so high, and the minimum wage hasn't budged very much, right, in comparison to how much everybody has to pay. People go to alternative sources of try to make money, right? And if you're not getting the jobs that are going to be paying what you need in order to survive, what do they revert back to? A lot of times it's going to be that they go back to doing what they were doing before, right? It's just discouraging overall, especially if you're trying to get housing, like he said, or you're trying to provide for your family. Like these guys, a lot of them are parents, right? And it just it trickles down within the family, right? Because, like I said, it affects the household, it affects the children, everything overall, right? You don't want that stigma over your head always. People are going to look at you a certain way based upon, bad decisions you made in your past.
No, that's some real stuff. And I'm gonna be honest, I agree. Obviously, unfortunately, I got a DOC number, and that's one of the first things you want to do as soon as you get out. One is you never want to go back. You kind of lightweight intimidated to, even step on some grass sometimes, right? But oftentimes you try to go get a job. You go into Home Depot, you go to Walmart, you know, usually construction is the only place we could get a job. And if you can't get a job there, you still got fines on parole. You got probation officers, supervisor fees, where oftentimes if you can't pay that, they quick to threaten you to violate you, right? And so the first thing you want to do, I need to make money somehow, some type of hustle, the only hustle you're familiar with, you kind of step right into that. I totally feel that. Now, Ben, you say you wear a lot of hats. Is only the time done? Is that one of the main programs you're working on? Are there other programs you're working on as well? Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, my primary role when it comes to community work is Northern California organizing through Time Done within the criminal justice reform space. But another project I'm working on right now is that I've created a community called the Phoenix Entrepreneurial Network, which is what this symbol represents right here. The phoenix engulfed in the wheat wreath represents rising from the ashes of struggle, rising from the ashes of struggle and adversity into the life of peace and prosperity that we all strive for, right? And then where and what is ultimately rooted in is pulling together a community of system impacted, formerly incarcerated business owners or aspiring entrepreneurs, and ultimately dumping as much business support resources into that community as possible. Because just like myself, I'm the it's true for most other entrepreneurs from our background that we don't really have that much guidance or support when it comes to starting businesses, right? We didn't really have business owners or entrepreneurs in our families when it comes to setting up the legal entities and setting up the support systems and everything that comes with running and operating a business. And then so where we really come in is that we get people together, such as myself, Maria, and others, and we connect them with senior business consultants from Chase Bank, for example. We run workshops with them, and we also have a business consultant with the Small Business Development Center. She comes in and she gives us Q&A sessions. She has dedicated one-on-one time to help us start, structure, grow, and basically develop our businesses. And it's a huge opportunity for most people that have the dream and the vision to start a business, but don't necessarily know how to.
So what you're saying is you have businesses come in and just kind of give you the roadmap, for beginner business owners. Is that what that process is?
Yeah, ultimately, what it is, right, is that so we started. This is how it started. It started off with me and Christina Brown, executive director of Bridges of Hope. We had the vision of together opening up a facility in the Central Valley area that will be rooted on professional skill development for system impacted, formerly incarcerated people, reentry services, things of that sort, right? And the idea behind that is that a lot of people, when they're ready to move on with their lives and better themselves and go for that high paying career, or to start that business, or to pursue something of that caliber, a lot of times we don't have the professional skill set to necessarily execute those visions, right? As far as when it comes to getting a getting a good paying job in an office setting, or getting promoted to supervisor, manager, director, or anything of that sort, or starting your own businesses and managing their operations thereof. There's certain technical skills that you need to have in order to do that, right? And a lot of people from our background, they struggle with using computers. They struggle with with fully operating Zoom with all of its capabilities. They we and I include myself in this. We struggle with Microsoft Suite, Google Workspace, everything that comes into the
Yes.
into like the office software that's necessary to run, operate, and manage a business, right? And then so we want to create a facility that helps people do that. And what that would look like, right? Our vision is that we have this facility, we have a computer lab, we have conference room, we have like workshop areas, right? And then so we would have all this office software, all this office software set up to to teach people with, right? And we'll have them set up with LinkedIn, Coursera. We'll have instructors come in. We'll have other consultants come in that are willing to give back to the community and willing to essentially help teach some people some marketable skills, right? And say, for example, Maria, right? I'll use her as an example. Let's just say she is working in an office and she has to populate an Excel spreadsheet for whatever reason, right? But she doesn't necessarily know how to do it because she doesn't have the experience to know how to do that, right? So my vision is for her to be able to come to our facility and say, "Hey, check it out! I got this project that I need to do for work. I need to set up. I need to set up this Excel sheet, right? And I need help doing it." But I'm also doing it because I want to get promoted. But I don't necessarily have all the technical skills needed to manage the office, right? But I want that. But I want that raise. I want that promotion. I want that added responsibility. But there's a learning curve there. I want to be able to say, all right, check it out, Maria. We got you. Let us know what you need to do, and let's walk you through how to set up and use Excel, how to populate it with whatever you need to populate it with to complete your project. And then once you're done with that and you turn that and you kill that assignment, we want you to be able to come back and sign up for certification courses, right? Whether it be through Coursera, LinkedIn, it doesn't have to be nothing too complicated because simplicity is key at the end of the day. Ultimately, what we want to see is that I want to see people equipped with the skills that's needed to succeed in the office, and the certifications and the experience that they could pack their resume with to qualify for those jobs. Because a lot of times, they're people of our background, right? We have excellent communication skills. We have excellent social skills, leadership skills. We know how to get stuff done when we put it in the office, and we have great work ethic, right? And that's been proven time and time again. But sadly, we get overlooked for the managerial positions. right, for the management positions because the lack of that specific of that um, professional
Specific
skill
training.
set.
No, I feel that.
Exactly,
That's badass.
and that's the skill gap we want to close.
That's badass. And so this is, do you guys charge like a monthly fee? Do you guys charge an annual fee? How does that work?
No, everything is 100% free.
Oh wow.
Everything is 100% free. I don't charge nobody nothing. And the rationale behind that is that I really come from that culture and that struggle from behind the walls, right? And so I come from the culture where we share our last soup with each other. We share the clothes off our back with each other. And when any of us are threatened, we're willing to sacrifice our lives to protect each other, right?
So
So the last thing I'm going to do is come from that brotherhood and then tell my folks in that struggle that are coming home trying to get on their feet that they have to pay me in order to help them. It's simply something I won't do.
So I want to kind of, you know what I mean, unpack that a little bit. You use things like my last soup, my last blah blah blah. You're talking about jail experience as a lived experience. You didn't read about it. You've walked that path yourself then, unfortunately.
Yes.
That's what's up. So you truly trying to help people where you've come from. You ain't one of those yuppies who read about it in a book or saw it on a TV program. You have lived experience where you're like, nah, I know what this shit is like. I know what these hurdles are like. I know, trying to accomplish goals and having no help. You're literally trying to do this yourself. I think that's fucking badass, man. You know what I mean? I wish more people would do shit like that. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. That's powerful. Maria, I know you do a lot of stuff for the community. I know you like to get involved. You're a mom. Your stuff is more of the modeling stuff. Are you ever seeing Ben up at the state? Do you ever advocate? Do you ever have your ladies come and speak out for the better good? Why don't you fill us in on that?
When we talked about it, we have went with him to state capitol and got involved with that. I mean, for me personally, just because I am an entrepreneur and
You
he's
don't
helped
you
me
don't have to
out a
yell at us,
lot
Maria.
within
We can
that.
barely hear you.
Yeah, so as far as the Phoenix organization that he has started, that's been a great asset to me as far as me running my business because um, there's so many things that, like he said, that our people are not well versed in. I wasn't raised. I have the idea. I have the motivation. I have the fire. I have all the initiative. But as far as like us getting our all the paperwork, everything done, the LLC, all that stuff. I'm not familiar with that. I don't come from that. And I think a lot of people that come from our background relate to that. So I'm definitely super enthusiastic about what he has going on. I went with him to the state capitol before as far
That's
as
badass.
everything with time done. I know how impactful that is on our families. Speaking from a woman's point of view, with people that I've loved that have been incarcerated, even me being incarcerated before, things like that, just knowing how it affects our families, right? So I'm behind that 100% because coming from a woman's perspective, I could see how the children are impacted, how us as women are impacted, how we have to pick up the slack a lot of times when the guys do get incarcerated as far as picking up, for the financial side that when they're gone, right? So it impacts everybody overall. So I'm super 100% involved in that. And yes, the models will be involved. We want to get involved in non-private organizations, things that are going to impact and help the community. So it's not just the girls being a pretty face. We like to get involved with all types of things that are going
That's
to
badass. I think
help our
that's
communities
what we need
back.
is, we call that positive peer pressure. You know what I mean? More than anything, it's one thing to have these nerds that's, like I said, who's never done time, never seen a jail cell, and it's other people that have lived experience that can relate to the audience that they're trying to reach. You know what I mean? When you got these yuppies that's never seen struggle before, trying to tell people about struggle, tell people about overcoming hurdles and obstacles, it's hard hearing someone that don't even know what it's like. It's a lot different when people yourselves be like, "What you mean, bro? I've done the same amount of time. I've done more time. I've had that same struggle." It's a whole different, you know what I mean? It's a whole different personality. It's a whole different attitude. You know what I mean? So I think that is badass. Another topic that I want to talk about. I don't want to get off. I don't want to leave time done, alone, because I think that's a beautiful thing. Anybody that has a DOC number, and the difference between the inmates and the convicts is, unfortunately, the convicts tend to, you know, um, reoffend, violate their time, but actually finishing their time. I love that. I love anybody trying to, you know what I mean, help navigate, through that process. I think that's badass. Another thing I want to talk about, though, unfortunately, is that pre-issue, before the arrest. Um, a lot of times, we have, like, for example, in Oakland, California, out here in the Bay Area, you have Trump talking about militarizing the police, right? You have, before you had, I think you have one extreme where you have people talking about defund the police. We don't even need police. And then you got the opposite side, the other bookend, the opposite bookend, where you have Trump. Not only do we need the police, we need to militarize the police. I want to get both of y'all's opinions, because you guys see both sides of it, right? You're trying to get people away from that situation. You want to get people out of that situation. You've been behind the walls. You've been in the yard. How do you guys feel about that? Ben, why don't you start off? What's your opinion? Trump's talking about right now militarizing the police, putting the police right here in Oakland, California. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's a terrible idea. I think it's a slippery slope. Um, I think at the end of the day, and, and mind you, I'm not 100% anti-police, right? Because I'm not for an anarchy state, right? There has to be some form of order and control in any functioning society, right? But there has to be checks and balances. There has to be nuance. There has to be some common sense at the end of the day. And a lot of people that support this militarization push of law enforcement agencies and officers, I personally think that they need to remember that at the end of the day, police aren't here to necessarily serve you. They're here to serve the government and to uphold the power structure thereof, right? And at the end of the day, that police are ultimately government enforcers, right? And then so if you, I don't necessarily believe it's a wise idea to militarize um, government enforcers and give them a large width of authority and control with little to no oversight and accountability. That's
Man,
just a recipe for disaster. Not just in the near future, but farther down the road when other politicians with other visions and other ideas come into play, and they now have this militarized force at their disposal. That's something that we need to be aware of and think of.
it sets a precedence right there. And I think that's something that, like, I like what you said right there, because oftentimes you'll get these extreme ends where you can either hate the police and you want, like you just said, that anarchist mentality where we don't need the police. The crackheads, if we get rid of the police, the crackheads robbing people will suddenly become sober and get jobs. That's not a reality. You know what I'm saying? Like, unfortunately, we're always going to need some form of policing. But like you said right there, we need accountability and oversight. Maria, I want to kind of throw that same question to you. As a woman, I'm sure you see a lot more, situations, just as many such bad situations as a man do. And how do you feel about the militarizing of the police? As a woman, do you want
I
to
mean,
see it?
I'm from Richmond, and we're right there, hop, skipping a jump away from Oakland.
Where
We've
were you?
definitely
You
always
from where?
had.
Where you from again? I didn't hear where you from. You from where now?
I'm from Central Richmond.
From
Yeah,
Richmond. That's a nice area. Was if we don't know about.
yeah, it's lovely. The city of pride and purpose. Get your ass in the house. I'm sorry, my kids are out here. Get in the house.
The
I'm a
city of
mom.
Richmond.
I'm a
So,
mom.
so
Get in
I'm
the
a
house.
Richmond mom. Now, for real, that's a good point right there.
It's in the
As a
drawer.
Richmond
My bad.
mom,
I'm a mom. I gotta multitask.
now I want to hear it. I
So
want to hear
my
about
thing
them.
is, when it comes to that, I feel like like I had mentioned before, it's borderline to me getting very close to martial law. I look at it like, what's the agenda behind this, right? I look at the bigger picture because they're always delegating this, doing this, whether it's with what they pulled with ICE, right? And going in there and they're, pulling people out of their homes and they're doing all these things. I feel like it's super it's more complex than that, right? So I don't trust it. I don't know, like I told you, if they're going to go in, they're going to be targeting our people instead of really advocating for us and trying to get rid of the crime, or are they going to go in there? Because look at the population in Oakland. It's black and brown, right? So it's like, okay, they're coming toward us as if like they're coming to attack us. Really, when it comes down to it, that's how I see it. It's like a police state, right? And I mean, I feel like if anything, like they mentioned before about taking away the firearms, we need our firearms. That's our protection against tyranny, right? So, I mean, it's almost like it's treading a super thin line, and I feel like they're going about it the wrong way. If they want to get rid of crime, they have to look at the root cause. Society is broken down by the family being broken down. You have a lot of single parent homes, right? Mainly single moms. There are single fathers out there, and you have a lot of people that are in poverty. They're struggling financially, right? So you have to look at the root. Why do we have crime in general, right? It's broken down. There's a lack of education, there's a lack of support. You have communities where you can go look at Black Hawk and Walnut Creek, and you have these nice little areas where they have their downtown areas, and there's things for the kids to do. There's, skating rings and bowling alleys and
No, that's
and
real.
movie theaters. And you go into the inner cities and you see liquor stores everywhere, right? So it's like, what are they know, they're not stupid. With common sense, you could say, okay, like, what could we do to better society here, right? You're going to want to make more, you're going to make better opportunities for the children to get educated. You're going to help the single parent homes. You're going to build things for the children to do, more community centers, more activities for the children, right? Clean up the city, get rid of the homeless population, help people out from the drug issues and the poverty, right? Those are the things that you need to do in order to get rid of crime. You're going to go in there and you're going to lock people up. That's like putting a Band-Aid on a wound and that's bleeding out. That it doesn't make any sense to me.
No, that's
They know.
what
I
it
don't.
kind of sounds
I think there's
like.
another agenda behind it.
It kind of seems like you're where your heart's saying is your heart is talking about you want more money and more power invested in preventative, right? Before it even gets to that situation, you feel like, hey, where we messed up is like you said, like you mentioned San Ramon, Blackhawk, a lot of these, let's be honest, these white areas, you know what I mean? They got things for their kids to do. And usually though their activities, even though they're rich, they're millionaire areas, a lot of the activities are free for their kids. Right. But you come here to Alameda County, you come to Oakland, you come to Richmond, anywhere in the East Bay. And not only is there a limited amount of things to do, there's usually a waiting line on that. And it's ridiculously expensive, you know what I mean, to participate in that. So now I 100% agree with you. I definitely think, the money that we're going to be wasting on that military to hold the police's hands, you know what I'm saying, could be spent on some preventative measures, you know what I mean? And one, I do agree with Ben, what you were saying earlier. This puts a precedence where, Trump is pretty damn bad. But what if we get another president that comes in and says, hey, crime's bad. We don't need wars. You know what I'm saying? I just don't like these protests going on because I'm a corrupt politician and I want to use the military to just shut it down. Like you said, martial law. I want to martial law anything, executive order. And I think this kind of, what does it say when it softens us, when it gets us used to, a military force. America used to be the country where, military on our own ground. That's, a clear red flag that policy is failing somewhere. And so we've never had the CIA, even though they do operate in our land, they're not supposed to operate in our land. The same thing with our police. We always say we don't want military style weapons on our streets. Well, we don't want to replace those weapons with the actual military. You know what I mean? So I definitely agree with you, Maria. I think that, yeah, the resources and money that we're wasting on the military, we could have used that on preventative, you feel me? Whether it's sports programs, whatever it is to get this troubled youth, you know what I mean, to do something else other than sell guns, uh, sell drugs, you know what I mean? Some type of, something that's going to get you down to that future. You know what I mean? So,
Well, I feel like what our people need to do is to really open up their eyes and say, nobody is going to come rescue us, right? There might be some programs out there that we could take advantage of, which is great. But when it comes down to it, who's really going to help our people? It has to be us. They really don't give a fuck about us. Like Tupac says, they don't give a fuck about us.
that's real.
We have to make the initiative ourselves to say, okay, like what Ben's doing, for example, he's taking his idea, he's bringing it to a fruition, and he's doing something that's proactively going to make changes in our people that have a great idea that sometimes, like, and especially with me, I've had a great idea and then I started up and then it goes to shit because I don't know how to get it off the ground, right? But with him, he's creating this program where it could really impact our people, right? And help them become entrepreneurs, bring in money to our communities. We have to help ourselves. Nobody's going to come in with a cape and rescue our people. We have to do it. So that means we have to create these opportunities. We have to say, okay, let's organize, let's make there's somebody that coaches. Okay, he could do it for free. Maybe he could start some, activities for the kids in the community, right? Maybe we could do camp, put money in together and start camp, maybe camping for the kids for the summer, right? We have to do those things for ourselves because no one's going to do it for us. And when it comes down to it, when they do things like that and they're bringing the military, they're going to come and they're going to attack the black and brown people. A lot of our people are going to get locked up.
Let's be honest. When they bring in the military and they saying there's some scary people in Oakland, I don't think they're talking about the whites and the Asian folks. You know what I'm saying? Not to bash my white folks and my Asian folks, but I don't think that's the people they're talking about. I think that's the people they're protecting. And the black and brown folks is the people they protecting them from. So now that's some real. I love great conversations like this. And speaking of being targeted, it's another controversial topic. I'm throwing some curveballs at y'all tonight. You know what I mean? Great conversation. Right now, what's really going on in the news is the raids. Right? You have and I'm seeing brown on both sides of the raids. I've seen a lot of Trump supporters, Latins for Trump, that are like, hey man, illegal immigration is killing the wages for a lot of black and brown Americans because that's a lot of where the labor jobs are, and it's driving up rent for a lot of people. And so some people are really for these raids. Other people are like, man, if you really want to stop the raids, you need to be going after these business owners, and you need to be going after these landlords, these slumlords that are preying on immigrants, and these sleazy corporations that are going after slave labor. How do you guys feel about that? Ben, let's start off with you. Do you feel the issue is, the immigrants are the issue that we really need to go after? Or do you think like, hey, maybe if we, the same way we would attack a business for selling, alcohol to a kid, you don't arrest every kid coming out of the liquor store. You would simply tell the liquor store, if you continue to do that, we're going to take away your business license. Should we be going after corporations, or do you think it makes more sense that we need to go after the individual immigrants with this huge border patrol presence?
Well, you know what? To be honest with you, when I think of and process these issues personally, I step back from the from the typical legal and political frame of thought, right? And just look at it from a human perspective, right? As far as just look at these individuals as you would your own brother, your sister, your son or your daughter that may be caught up in some type of bind, may be caught up in some type of situation, or they're trying to navigate through some murky waters that they don't understand, right? And the reason why I say that is because just like in criminal justice reform issues, right? Whenever we're talking about whenever we're talking about criminal law, court proceedings, sentencing, and stuff like that, it's the logic carries over to immigration issues. Is that people aren't people aren't empathetic until it happens to them or their loved ones, right? And then a lot of times when I have a purely rational and logical or legal discourse with somebody, it's easy for them to go back and forth with me, right? But then when I break it down, and say, okay, well, let's let's change course and talk about what if this was happening to your son? What if this was happening to your mother? Now the situation is completely different. Now we need to practice empathy. Now we need to practice understanding. Now we need to help this person and not penalize this person, right? And then so that's how I process it and address these issues from just a human perspective. You know what I mean? Just have some heart, have some compassion. Don't be a shitty person. It's really that simple for me personally.
Maria, why don't you jump in on that? Tell us how you feel.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that, on the other note, there's a part of me that says you have to have borders in order to have, you can't have chaos, right? So there has to be a way to go about this where you can alleviate the situation, right? Because there is an issue where you can't have open borders. You can't do that either, right? And that's something it's leaves me in a rough place because I'm indigenous, like our people we're native to this land, right? So it's like super sensitive to say, oh yeah, we're illegals. I can't stand that because this is our land. We're standing on, right? So it's like it's crazy that they even target, and even in the way they put it off on the media, it's always like the Mexicans and that sort of thing, right? But they don't say what about the Chinese, what about the Canadians, what about all these other races that come in, and they just hone in on us, right? Which is, it's like, that's ridiculous. Come on now, we're from here.
No, I
We're
feel that.
indigenous.
No,
Like,
I had to 100%. You know what I'm saying? Like, clearly, brown folks are being targeted right now. And when I say brown folks, I specifically mean Latin and indigenous, right? If we really cared about illegal immigration, you know, I hear this oftentimes. You know, I'll go on the blogs, and you'll get Trump supporters that will thrash me. Mexico this, Mexico that. If you really care about illegal immigration, the number one immigrant that comes here is China. And that's because they got
right?
1.8 billion people on earth. So obviously their numbers are going to be bigger than any other country. The second biggest population that comes is India, because they too have over 1 billion people. So their population is going to be bigger. And unfortunately, great people, great cultures, but they're taking tech jobs. You know what I mean? So that's, if we really care about immigration, if we really care about jobs being stolen, you know, I would say, well, let's look at that. But obviously, that doesn't seem to be the issue. It kind of
And they
feels.
say come in legal, but then the process is super hard. Like, you have people coming in here that really just want to be really productive members of society. They just want to provide for their families and give their kids a better life. Like Ben said, if you're in a place of poverty, you see your children suffering. Your people are hungry. You want to give your kids a better life. Are you not going to do everything you can to give your kids a better life?
Well, no, I get that,
Right?
but
So
like
it's like,
if you see though, like let's take for example Trump. Trump right now, I don't know if you know what's going on in South Africa, but South Africa is where there was an apartheid. If you guys, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but there was an apartheid where black folks were considered less than humans still to this day, right? And so they're taking it back, and so they're trying to kill all the white farmers that took all those lands in that illegal occupation, right? And so those white people, now they're fleeing, trying to seek asylum in America, right? But these are actual Nazis that, you know, they're apartheid. They feel that black people are less than. They're trying to come to America, and Trump was open arms with them. Hey, these families are trying to, these farmers, they're just trying to come to America and seek a better life. However, because oftentimes we blame Mexico for that, but the southern immigration border usually is issue isn't mainly Mexico, because Mexico's economy is starting to thrive. So it's not Mexicans, it's simply a lot of South Americans and countries right below Mexico that travel through Mexico, and they get blamed for that. And so when you have those farmers come in, man, that's military age man, they're scary, blah blah blah. But we have these white people from Africa, the Afrikaners is what they call them. They're more than welcome. Do you think that there's a bias towards only brown people? Like, you don't see these raids at Chinese schools, you don't see these raids at European schools, but for some reason, you tend to see the media focusing on a lot of the Latin raids. Do you
they
think that
steer
is
the
a
narrative always toward us, but this is not the first time they've done this before.
do you
You know,
think
where
that's
they
a
tried to
perception?
clean up and deport our people out of here.
Do you
They've
think
been done.
do you think the media is only covering brown raids, or do you think nah, they only going after brown raids?
Everything the media does to me is steered by the CIA. I mean, to me, I don't give a fuck what anybody says. They're all under the same umbrella, right? And they are doing, this is like mind control. They could put whatever narrative they want out there and people just consume it like that's facts. Like, there's people don't have critical thinking skills anymore. You know, I don't go with, even though I'm indigenous, I'm Mexican American, I don't just run whatever they give me. I sit back and I think about, I look at every perspective, right? Like, of course I love my people, but I still don't think there should be open borders, right? So there has to be a way to go about this, but they make it so fucking hard for our people to obtain. They're like, go get your papers, do it the right way. Do they understand how fucking hard it is for half these people that have been trying to do that? They've been trying to do it the right way. And then they have it where they have it like, okay, you could stay here if one of your kids joins the military. So sacrifice your child and you could stay here. They have no problem with us fighting in the war. You know how many Mexican American people fought for this country?
Yeah, right.
Most declarated in the military. Latinos, Mexican Americans, Chicanos. They have no problem us picking their food, feeding them, cleaning their house, raising their kids. They have eating Taco Tuesday. They got no fucking problem with that. But they don't want us here when this is our shit. Really, we could get really fucking militant too if they want to. Because I know they don't want that. And that's probably what they're scared of. They probably know we have babies. You guys don't like it that we have a lot of children? Well, have more kids. You white people don't have enough kids. We have kids. You're mad that your population is down. Go have some more fucking children.
No, that's what it
How about
is.
that?
That's what it is.
You know, it's
Whenever
not
you
our fault you guys can't handle it. You know, Becky can't handle more than 1 or 2 kids. She's exhausted. Well, I got 7, honey, so get with the program because, you know, I'm going to have my kids. I'm repopulating this motherfucker. This is my land.
No, that's that's
You
real.
know?
You know, we can laugh at that, but that's really the difference between someone, this is being their homeland, because this brown folks, this is our homeland. So naturally we are going to produce more, you know what I mean, versus importing a population. And though white folks was a big chunk over here, they were importing themselves. So that is hard to consistently import a population versus a homegrown population that is going to continuously grow.
They have to ask themselves, I ask myself, what are they scared of? What the fuck are they scared of? Why do they hate our people so much? You know? And then they try to put these seeds in everybody around where they put this on the media and they say, oh, you know, look at they're doing this, they're doing that. Oh, they're coming over here, they're raping, they're doing, you know, they're selling drugs, and then people just run with that. They really run with it. They really just believe that that's what type of people we are. There's good and bad of every race. There's phenomenal white people. There's piece of shit white people. There's phenomenally black people. There's piece of shit black people, just like with our people. You know, common sense. You know, they put everybody in one category. That's so ignorant. That's so stupid. We're all different. You can't have a bias like that. Really, it's just dumb.
No, that's real. That's some real shit. Ben, do you think that when you're advocating for like time done and stuff, are you seeing a lot more black and brown people getting sentenced with the severe sentence versus white people because of that mentality that Maria's talking about? That perception?
Well, there's definitely a disparity, um, and the two issues are connected in the sense that when we're talking about it, right? When we're talking about the crackdown on immigration and everything that's connected to that, it's really a multi-layered, multifaceted conversation, right? You can go at it from a very from different angles, right? And my take on it is just like in the '80s, right? When when the individuals in power, they propped up a multi-billion-dollar uh, carceral system to exploit our people. That's that that was their motivation behind that, right? And so then we ask ourselves, why would they demonize people in the inner cities and corral them into these jails and prisons, right? It's a multi-billion-dollar profitable industry. That's the answer, right? And when it comes to immigration, they found a way to profit off of immigration as well with the detention centers and everything that goes into that, because the same corporations that are building the detention centers were the same corporations that were building the prisons, right? So it all comes down to money. It all comes down to multi-billion-dollar industries that exploit our people for their own gain, right? For their own profit. And that's ultimately what we're seeing here. And yeah, we could talk about a lot of other things, a lot of other motives, right? As far as you talk about class issues, race issues, things of that sort. But at the end of the day, rooted in
Money.
money. That's my
Money.
opinion.
Private prisons and the investment of a private prison. Nah, for sure. That, you know, that's the number one return customers is inmates. You know what I mean? What is it, like 80% return customers? I mean, geez, what kind of business? You know what I mean? When you get 80% return customers, that's one of the best businesses you can invest in. So why would they ever want to slow that down?
Yeah, and it's a huge industry. For example, I believe last year the annual budget for California prisons was about $14.6 billion for for 1 year. The annual budget was about $14.6 billion. And the wild thing about that is that if you think about the when you think about prison overcrowding, right, and the whole timeline with that, and I haven't thought about this in a while, so my data sets may be a little off, so I'm gonna generalize it. About about 10 or 15 years ago, the annual budget for California prisons was about $7 billion, but the population was close to 180,000 people. Fast forward to today, there's about 90,000 people, and the budget is $14.6 billion. So within that span of 15 years, the prison population was cut in half, but their budget was doubled.
And do you think that goes to the actual facilities, or you think that goes to salaries and profits?
I think that goes to salaries, it goes to profits, I think that goes to pensions, I think that goes to bonuses. I think that goes to overhead, right? Because if you talk to anyone that's locked up in the California prison, I'm for sure guarantee you they're not getting $14 billion worth of services. Otherwise, we would have people a whole lot better prepared for reintegration than they are now. If they're getting $14 billion worth of rehabilitative services.
That goes, man. That this is, we always talk about this on the show. I wanted to talk about it different, but it kind of boils right down into it, man. It's corruption, right? Wouldn't you
Yeah.
say, you know, and again, I'm a Democrat, you know what I mean? California is ran by Democrats. California is majority Democrats. We love to blame Trump for everything, but I think we got to own this one up that when it comes to our state penitentiaries, you know what I mean, our state budgets, our state leadership seem to be corrupt as fuck. Would you say am I wrong on this, Ben? What's your thoughts on that?
I would say it's complicated, right? And the only reason why I say it like that, because I know it sounds kind of like you know what I mean, like a slippery way to dodge that, right? But the reason why I say it's complicated because yes, it's true that mass incarceration policies were supported by Democrats leading into this, right? But it's also true that our primary champions of criminal justice reform are Democrats, right? They're the ones that are
Progressives.
championing
Yep.
and authoring the bills that are reducing the sentencing, improving prison conditions, as well as reinvesting state dollars back into the community when it comes to community development and preventative programs, right? So that's why I say it's complicated because at the end of the day, it just comes with the vices of power, right? Some people can resist temptation. Some people can resist temptation. Some people can't, right? I don't necessarily think that's a partisan issue. I think that's more of just a human
Yeah.
issue.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, that's real. I think that's kind of what I was talking about earlier when we were saying when it comes to the majority of California, we all wear Democrats. But like you said, you just called it out right there. You're like one of the biggest liberal policies, you know what I mean, is compassion. You know what I mean? Whether that's sentencing, whether that's, immigration issues, whether that's social safety nets for food stamps, you do, like you said, it's usually the Democrats that want those social safety nets or the softer jail sentences, or when they're coming out some type of services or programs, you know what I mean, so that way they're just not thrown into the into the wilderness, and then they're like, good luck, survive. Versus Republicans are like, they're a little bit more pro-military, they're a little bit more pro-government, pro-law enforcement, so they want to, lock a motherfucker up if they break a crime, if they commit a crime, throw away the key. On top of that, I do get that. That's why I say, you know what I mean. California being majority Democrats, as a Democrat, you know what I mean. I feel like that's one of the things we have to say. Like, there's a lot of people that wear the Democratic hat, but I feel like they vote for a lot of Republican shit. Like, how does California? Ben, I'm gonna ask you. You're in the state. I see you're in social media. You're always at the state capitol. It seems like a lot, doing a lot of good things. Do you feel like you see a lot of Democrats that support conservative values, vote for conservative values? What stops all these democratic policies from moving forward?
I'm not sure. To be honest with you, right? I'm not gonna sit here and like pretend like I know the answers, right? I don't know. I'm not sure. Um, there's I'm not sure, to be honest with you. It's just there's there's different schools of thoughts, different personalities. A lot of people have different lived experience, different perspectives, and some and like you said before, some people don't. Some people are tasked with addressing issues of a community that they don't have personal experience with themselves, right? So, like, say for example, when you have an individual that's in power, that or it has a position of authority or influence, and they're tasked with addressing crime, right? They may not know the ins and outs of that struggle, right? They just for them, they know what they hear in their reports. They know what they see on the news. They know the conclusions that they come to in their meetings, right? But they weren't necessarily in the communities watching their parents struggle to pay the bills. They weren't necessarily in that community watching kids struggle their way through adolescence and try to find their manhood, and instead get misdirected into a hyper violent culture, right? And believing that they're just moving forward with what they believe it takes to be a man, right? And all those issues compound or snowball into bigger issues that entrench people into long term paths, right? And a lot of them, they don't necessarily understand that from a personal perspective, right? They may just actually believe that if an individual is arrested and punished, they may learn their mistake, right? But as myself, they weren't sentenced to 10 years in prison at 18 years old, right? So they don't know that there's nothing really positive on those yards. There's no real rehabilitative programs. There's no one there to save you. There's no one there really prepping you to come home, take care of your family, get a high paying job, start a business, buy a house, and give back to your community in a meaningful and impactful way, right? You're basically huddled up on this corner. You got another race of people huddled up on that corner, and every now and then we fight over some issues. You know what I mean? There's not too much learning and rehabilitation going on in that type of environment, especially when there's really no classes or programs offered to us other than a plot of grass and dirt where they let us come out and stare at each other at.
Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? Man, this was a deep conversation. I think we've exceeded the hour limit. You know what I'm saying? We got lost in a great conversation. You know, I want to thank Ben. I want to thank Maria. Both y'all sat down. We had a great conversation. We talk about it from a real perspective. You guys, obviously, it's a lived experience. You know, you guys ain't talking about it for reading from a book. Maria, you at all the video shoots with them hoodlums, so I know you seen it. And Ben, you at the state capitol. You know what I mean? Advocating for us like you should. We need leaders like yourselves doing that. So I want to thank both of you guys for sitting down with me, having a great conversation, and let me have your guys' perspective of what you guys think. You know, Maria, you got a little bit of Republican values in you. You got a little bit of Democratic values in you. But I like that we can sit down, we could talk normally, and people ain't offended. Like, oh my God, you have this opinion that disagrees with mine. You must be Hitler. You know what I mean? You must be this. You must be a horrible person. So I really love that. I love seeing brown folks get together. I love seeing brown leaders like Ben, CEO like Maria, that is, successful business, changing policy in the state. I appreciate that. And real quick, if I could just have y'all agree on one thing to end this night. What's a music video we can listen to that we can end this show on, man? Give me a music video we can listen to that's dope right now that we can end this on.
Like right now or old
I want to
song?
hear what's in Maria's playlist, man. What's in Ben's playlist? I want a video we
Oh,
can
you
end
know
this with.
I
I'm an
fuck
old
with
man, so I
I
don't know
fuck
what's
with
popping.
old school. I fuck with the Tupacs and the Keep the Sneak and the Dre Dog and the Andre Nicotina's
Oh, you
and
got
all
okay.
that. You know what I mean? And I fuck with my homeboys too. You know what I mean? Like, come on now. You know, with this and everybody. You know, Mad Dog, all them. You know, I'll give it to Ben. Come on, Ben, bring something.
Ben, give us some we ain't up on right now.
You know what? Like when I'm in my space, I'm trying to get on my zone and and get my mindset right. I like to slap that nip, grinding on my life.
All right, man.
Good.
Y'all heard it right here. We're gonna end it. Ben, Maria, I appreciate y'all stopping by. Y'all, we'll end this with a little Nipsey Hustle. We out.
All right. God bless everybody. Thank you.
Let me stop this.